small towns that once pulsed with economic activity have now been reduced to little more than stone foundations swallowed by forests, or rows of empty houses slowly waiting to collapse. Pennsylvania is often called the backbone of American industry, but behind its legacy of steel and coal, it carries wounds that never fully heal, much like what we've just explored. From the endless underground fire in Centralia to Rust Belt towns losing population decade after decade, the story of ghost towns here is not just about haunted places. It is a sociological reality. What happens when natural resources run out and major industries leave, forcing thousands of people to choose between staying or watching their hometowns fade into history. We begin with the most iconic location. If you ever drive into Columbia County, you might notice something unusual: cracked asphalt roads with thin smoke rising through the gaps. That is your first sign that you have arrived in Centralia. What remains today is not just a town abandoned for economic reasons, but one driven out by an environmental disaster that began in 1962. Experts estimate the underground coal mine fire here could continue burning for another 250 years. Today, Centralia is almost completely gone. The Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary Church, sitting on a hill, is one of the very few structures still standing. The town's zip code has been erased, and most homes were demolished by the state through eminent domain. Yet despite the danger from toxic carbon monoxide gas, a small number of residents refused to leave until the very end, turning Centralia into both a symbol of resistance and a deeply real tragedy. Just minutes away from Centralia, Byrnesville faced an even stranger fate. The town itself had no underground fire, but because it sat directly in the path of toxic gases spreading from Centralia, officials determined it was no longer safe to live there. By the late 1980s, the entire population had been relocated. Today, if you pass along Route 61, you will find little more than an overgrown entrance, blocked off and reclaimed by thick vegetation. The only real marker of what once stood here is a small memorial placed by former residents. Byrnesville stands as a reminder that environmental disasters do not respect boundaries. Moving northwest into Venango County, you will find an open field that was once known as Pennsylvania's Sin City. Pithole City was born during the oil boom of 1865. In less than a year, its population exploded from 0 to around 15,000 people. At its peak, the town had 50 hotels, a theater, and one of the busiest post offices in the state. But its success lasted only about 500 days. When the oil wells ran dry and a major fire swept through the area, residents left as quickly as they had arrived. Today, not a single original building remains. Pithole serves as a powerful reminder of how fragile prosperity can be when it depends entirely on a single natural resource. Visitors now can only trace the layout of the town through wooden markers placed across a wide stretch of green field. If you visit Ricketts Glen State Park today to admire its waterfalls, it is hard to imagine that a busy lumber town once stood here. Ricketts is a rare case where the death of a town gave rise to one of the most beautiful state parks in the United States. Historically, it was established by R. Bruce Ricketts in the late 19th century, built around a massive lumber operation that employed hundreds of workers. Once the hemlock and pine forests were fully cleared, the town lost its economic purpose and was completely abandoned by 1913. Nature quickly reclaimed the area. Today, all that remains are scattered stone piles that once served as house foundations, along with traces of the old railroad lines that carried timber through the valley. deep within the forests of Pennsylvania, there is a silence that feels almost absolute. Hidden inside Tioga State Forest, Landrus is a ghost town that is truly isolated. Reaching it requires traveling along rough, unpaved roads that cut through dense woodland. In its past, Landrus functioned as both a coal mining town and a logging hub. Its downfall came not only from depleted resources, but also from a devastating fire that destroyed nearly all of its wooden structures. Today, Landrus attracts those drawn to forgotten places and quiet history. Among the trees, you can still find remnants of an old cemetery where weathered gravestones have become difficult to read. The atmosphere feels deeply melancholic, as if time itself stopped moving the moment the fire finally died out. Alvira tells a different story, one shaped more by politics than by economics. In 1942, the United States federal government seized approximately 8,500 acres of land in the village of Alvira to build the Pennsylvania Ordnance Works, a munitions facility for World War II. As a result, around 150 families were forced to relocate on short notice. After the war ended, the plant was shut down, but residents were never allowed to return. Today, parts of the land have been converted into a federal prison, while other areas have become a wildlife refuge. One of the most striking sights here is the presence of old wartime remnants, rows of concrete igloo-shaped bunkers scattered through the forest, alongside a quiet cemetery from that era. These dome-like structures rise from the ground like strange, forgotten mounds. Alvira stands as a ghost town created not by economic failure, but by military necessity. Have you ever heard of Fall Brook? Located in Tioga County, this place was once a highly productive mining town, employing hundreds of workers at its peak. But like most mining communities, its fate was tied entirely to the value of what lay beneath the ground. When coal deposits were no longer profitable to extract, the company that owned the town simply pulled out. Today, Fall Brook is completely abandoned. What remains are the crumbling ruins of mining operations and the foundations of homes scattered along the banks of Fall Brook itself. Its hidden location means very few people ever visit, giving it an unusually authentic ghost town atmosphere, untouched, quiet, and free from most signs of modern vandalism. Much like Fall Brook, Wehrum in Indiana County represents the classic company town. Built in 1901 by the Lackawanna Iron and Steel Company, it was designed specifically for coal miners. The town once featured around 250 nearly identical houses, along with a bank, a church, and a company store that supported daily life. But when the mine shut down in 1929, the company didn't just leave, it dismantled the town itself. Most of the buildings were taken apart and sold for materials. In a short time, a once orderly and fully functioning community disappeared from the map. Today, the area has returned to private land and forest, with only a few concrete remnants hinting that hundreds of families once lived there. Moving from ghost towns of the past to a town struggling with its future brings us to Braddock. Unlike the others, Braddock is still inhabited, but its landscape tells a difficult story. Sitting along the Monongahela River, it is known as the home of Andrew Carnegie's Edgar Thomson Steelworks. At its peak, more than 20,000 people lived here. Today, fewer than 2,000 remain. Walking down Main Street feels like moving through the skeleton of something much larger. Grand brick buildings from the early 20th century now stand hollow, their windows gone, and their walls slowly overtaken by overgrowth. There have been efforts to revive the town through urban farming and art initiatives, But high poverty levels and aging infrastructure continue to weigh heavily. Braddock remains a place caught in between, still alive, yet constantly at risk of fading further without significant investment and renewal. Not far from what Braddock has experienced, Shamokin stands as one of the hardest-hit towns in Pennsylvania's coal region. In 1920, its population reached around 21,000 people, but today, that number has dropped to below 7,000. The town is often described as being stuck in time. Its streets are lined with classic Pennsylvania row houses, many of which now lean, deteriorate, or sit partially collapsed. One unusual detail is that Shamokin is home to one of the largest surface mining pits in the world, which has become a destination for off-road vehicle enthusiasts. But even with that niche tourism, it has not been enough to replace the coal industry that once supported nearly every household in the area. Next is Monessen, a city that perfectly represents what the term Rust Belt really looks like. Located along the Monongahela River, it was once a major center of global steel production. But after large mills shut down in the 1980s, Monessen lost more than half of its population. The contrast today is striking. Along the river, massive steel plants still stand, rusted, silent, and abandoned. Meanwhile, the residential neighborhoods on the hillsides are slowly emptying out. Many homes are listed at extremely low prices, yet buyers are scarce. One of the biggest challenges Monessen faces is a shrinking tax base combined with high financial burdens, a cycle that becomes harder and harder to break over time. Then there is Johnstown, a city known nationally not only for steel, but for tragedy. It is remembered for its devastating floods, especially the disaster of 1889 that killed more than 2,000 people. Time and again, the people of Johnstown rebuilt after each flood. But the challenge they could not overcome was deindustrialization. The population has steadily declined from about 67,000 in 1920 to roughly 18,000 today. At the same time, the city struggles with high levels of poverty. Many large buildings in the downtown area now sit empty, creating the feeling of a city built for far more people than remain. Johnstown stands at a difficult crossroads, caught between surviving as a smaller, resilient community or slowly fading into memory. Clairton reflects a similar struggle to the towns before it, but with a different kind of threat, one rooted in long-term health and environmental damage. The city is home to the Clairton Coke Works, the largest coke-producing facility in North America. While the plant is still active, the pollution it generates has pushed many residents to leave. The population has declined sharply, and large sections of the city now appear neglected, with abandoned homes scattered throughout. Clairton shows that even the presence of major industry does not guarantee a community's well-being, especially when the cost is the health and quality of life of its residents. The town feels heavy, not just from the air, but from the weight of its industrial past. Farrell, located in Mercer County, was once known as the Magic City because of its rapid growth during the height of the steel industry. But that sense of momentum disappeared when the Sharon steel plant collapsed in the 1990s. Since then, Farrell has struggled to redefine itself. Entire residential blocks have lost their homes, leaving behind sidewalks that now lead only to overgrown, empty lots. Crime rates have at times been elevated, and the local economy has yet to fully recover. Visually, Farrell stands as a clear example of how a community can slowly fade, block by block, until very little remains. Finally, we arrived in Shenandoah, in Schuylkill County. Once fueled by rich anthracite coal deposits, this town was among the most densely populated areas in Pennsylvania. It was also highly multicultural, shaped by waves of immigrants from across Europe who came seeking opportunity. Today, Shenandoah still lives, but at a much slower pace. Population decline has left visible gaps throughout its downtown. The tall, tightly packed wooden buildings typical of Pennsylvania mining towns have, in many cases, been torn down due to fire risks. Shenandoah represents countless small towns across the state that are still holding on, trying to avoid becoming the next name on the list of places that disappear entirely. Exploring these 15 towns across Pennsylvania reveals a powerful truth. A city is not permanent. It rises and falls alongside the forces of economics and human decision-making. From the sudden collapse of Pithole City to the long, drawn-out struggles of industrial towns like Braddock, we are shown another side of progress. In the end, these ghost towns stand as silent monuments to the workers who once built the foundation of American prosperity, now largely forgotten beneath forests, rust, and time. Visiting places like these is not just about chasing eerie stories. It is about recognizing the lives that were once lived there and understanding how easily even the strongest communities can fade away.